Hi, welcome to another art program of Artist and Critic. I'm Don Gray. Well, we're fresh from hanging our next exhibition, and I'm talking about the street painters. We will be having a show at the Ingber Gallery at 378th Street, June 27th through August 1st. And I can tell you it is a crackerjack dynamite show. Beautiful oils, acrylics, and pastels from floor to ceiling at the Ingber Gallery, 3 East 78th. And we've been out in the streets, we've been working in the studios from sketches, and we've been out in the country painting landscapes and industrial sites and so forth. And it's a peppy, lively, extremely worthwhile show. And you know that I've been leveling with you to the best of my ability, and even though I'm a member of the show, of the group, I would not say it was a great show if it isn't. So if your curiosity is piqued in the next 28 minutes or so, visit the Ingber Gallery, 378th Street, June 27th through August 1st, and see the street painters in action. I might also mention that the street painters have been on WBAI, and it is taped, as almost everything is these days in the world of electronics. And it will be aired at 8 p.m. on July 12th. That's the Street Painters interview on WBAI, July 12th at 8 p.m. I think it was an interesting, lively session that we had there, and I think it will give you some indication of what the street painters are all about. I think maybe at this point we could introduce the street painters that are here. There are about 6 or 7 of us, and we'll mention the names of those who are absent. Then we'll look at one example of work by each person, and they can describe it or say anything they want to while they talk about it, while the picture's up. Can we, let's see, why don't we, can we go from, let's say, left to right, and we start over here, perhaps, on the end. And we have my lovely wife, Jessie. You've seen her on her own program, Books Personalities. Her painting name is Jessie Benton Evans. Next to Jessie, there she is. Next to Jessie is Ari Rusimov. There he is. Handsome devil, Ari. Okay, we go to the next, go to the next picture. Person, and he's a real live person. Ken McIndoe. And and then Myron Heiss will be the next person coming up. We can just pan over to Myron. You can skip me. I've already been introduced. There's Myron Heiss. Philip Sherrod is the next on the list. We keep panning across the group. That thoughtful visage. He'll break out into wild exhortations here in a minute. Beautiful verbal descriptions of his paintings. And Simon Gayon rounds out the end here. And we might mention that Inger Yerby, Ronnie Denota, Bruce McGibney, and Tad Day are the 4 members who aren't here. Okay, maybe we can, does anybody have anything they want to say? Get off their chest right away before we look at the pictures? Any exciting experience, any place, or any thoughts about street painting? Or okay, why don't we take a look at this photograph that I'm holding, and perhaps we can get in closer on it, and if not, this is a painting by Simon Gayon. Simon, where is it? What's it about? What would you like to say about this painting? What were you trying to accomplish here?
What I was trying to accomplish, or what I accomplished, 2 different things. I say I was trying to accomplish high Venetian Renaissance on 42nd Street. But I believe very much that, you know, one is goal-orientated. You know, it's really, truly what you're trying to get rather than what you get. I'm not at all a painter concerned with academic facilities or illustrative power. I'm more concerned with getting the feeling of what what's out there for me. And this is a black man on Broadway, and with lots of lights and color behind him. And
did you ask him to pose for you, or did he stop by and say, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, right. He walked by and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'm going to paint you." And he said, "Well, okay." And, you know, he stood around for about 2 hours until there was literally this, and Sherrod's my witness. There was this cop and robber incident in which, you know, like little little fat men were running down the street with like Keystone cops chasing this gang of youth who just robbed some sex cinema or something. You know?
Around your easels and knocking over the pallets and...
No, they managed to avoid me. But it was an exciting night because, you know, the fire engines and police cars were like, you know, Beethoven in the background, and you know, it was beautiful. It was really nice.
Well, that's what street painters are about, trying to get some of the vitality and energy of real life on the streets, not just studio fabrications or the overly cerebral art practiced today. Incidentally, did the fellow who posed expect anything, or did he just get the pleasure of posing? Did he ask you for anything?
No, this particular fellow was just had a lot of class and was really just entertained by the fact that, you know, I was doing him and
having the experience of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we have Ari Rusimov's painting up here. Ari, what are you doing in this picture?
Well, this painting illustrates, I think, to a very good point, Rusimov as a feelist. An opposite to a symbolist, or an opposite to a surrealist. First of all, my paintings, which are very often taken to be symbolic, are more symbolic by way of the feelings and the exact tendency that comes from the heart to form symbols. This painting deals to a great extent with inner thoughts and inner feelings, and it's been associated with the Holocaust. Although painted, it was just a composition in color and a composition in form. And it turned out, yeah.
But you were trying to suggest something about human struggle, or the hunched over posture and the cane and all?
It started out as a little sketch which I did a long, long time ago of just a wandering Jew, or an old Jew walking on the street. And I had later done this painting larger, and it developed by itself.
Okay. We're going to have a painting by Inger Yerby up here. I don't think Inger paints these from life, does she? Does anyone know?
Yeah, she makes sketches.
Does.
Yeah,
She paints.
She sketches.
She sketches.
Works them over two or three times, and finally comes up with a sort of synthesis, in a way.
Okay, let me straighten it out.
She synthesizes for formal reasons or needs, she claims.
The colors are very bright and clear, and it seems a number of her works are based on experiences in Greece. Is that right?
Yeah, this was Greece. Yeah.
Okay, and Inger, of course, isn't here. We're sorry to say.
She just flew out. She just flew out this evening.
Flying back to Greece, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
She's rich.
Okay. Well,
You didn't say that.
here's another fellow who's rich, maybe in different ways or more the same way.
They can't spell.
Yeah. Painting by Philip Sherratt. Phil, what would you like to say about your burlesque?
Well, that was a time when this particular time was McIndoe and I were out in the street, and yeah, it was what was it, Mike? A Saturday morning.
It was
Saturday morning, Sunday morning.
Quiet,
Yeah.
Sunday quiet day.
It was a strange, had a strange light over the subject for me anyway. But I had this one guy that came up and said. I was about 3/4 of the way through, and he said, well, he kind of cleared his throat and very gently said, got up very close so no one could hear in the street, honking horns and people, He said, I hate to bother you, but do you, and he stuttered, do you know that you left the R out of burlesque? I almost whispered it. And I said, hell yes, I know, I said, but, are you sure it really belongs in there? I said, look, I don't have enough space in this area, and he disappeared, but he thought I was crazy and he ran off.
But the artist paints what he needs to paint, what interests him, and literal truth and so forth isn't maybe exactly what we're all after. Although I consider myself a realist. I'm after a certain amount of truth, and in this pastel of 59th Street Garage on 59th near 1st or 2nd Avenue, I'm just interested in the light and dark arrangement and getting some of the character of the environment, some of the neighborhood, some of the color of the Gulf sign, and just a feeling of the buildings. I think many of us are painting buildings as much as we are painting people. And I think that's one of the thrilling things about New York City, is that all the interaction of the signs and the building fronts and people in relation to the buildings, that we're actually, if we're not actually out there doing it, we're painting from sketches that have been made out there on location. And I can't help feeling, and you can go somewhere else. I think we've seen enough of
Don, wait, let me ask you, where is that? Is that 10th Avenue? Where is that? 3rd
No, it's
Avenue?
about 1st Avenue. It's on the east side, yeah.
How far up or down?
59th Street.
Yeah, it says 59th Street.
Yeah. And I just can't help but feel that we as street painters are pursuing a course here that is bringing art back in connection with real life, real experience, as opposed to people who dig holes in the desert and paint stripes and make videotapes that to me are really meaningless. We'll have to talk about somebody who was on the Cabot show recently, a video artist, and gee, it just is so different from what we're after. I just can't accept it. Myra, your picture is up here. What?
Well, this is Chinatown, and this was painted from a friend's studio, Howard Kalish, which is on Canal Street, and I looked down from his studio. I spent a lot of time on this painting, about 5-6 months, and I work this way much of the time. Sometimes I work on the street with the other street painters, and sometimes I work from drawings. But this was painted late at night. Usually I start about 8 o'clock and would stay painting until the lights, too many lights went out on the street down there.
Okay, so what, you're just trying to get some of the character of the city, right? I mean, you're attracted to it, and you're...
Right. I feel, I guess, that I'm more like I'm a feelist, but it's like I'm a romantic, too. I mean, the city is very, very romantic. I would feel that my vision would be, I would categorize it as...
romantic.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, would you like to speak for Ronnie here in this, his...
No one can speak.
Not as eloquent as he can. Go ahead.
Well,
you were there that night.
That's another night. Yeah, that's another night we were out, and Ronnie always sets up about 8 feet behind me, and you can hear him breathing and laughing. And you turn around about, let's say, halfway through of any painting, and he will have a crowd of 20, 15 people around him, and he'll be seducing them and talking and explaining. And they'll ask him, you know, why don't you change this area? He said, no. I said, see that up there? See that over there? See that reflection? And they go with him. You know, that interests me. You know,
I mean, he really does connect with the people.
Yeah, he connects with them, and he educates them. Yeah.
Okay, who would like to discuss Bruce McGivney's painting here? I don't believe this one's in the show. What do you feel Bruce is trying to express in this picture? Anybody?
Well, who wants to take it? Mike, no?
I always looking for a chance to talk.
I think it's very hard to tell what somebody's doing in a painting.
Somebody else?
Somebody else
Yeah.
sometimes. Particularly this painting here, which I can't see too well on the monitor. Seems to be figures walking in a street. Can I see that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Put Burgess, folks. We're going to... All right, we're loose show. Yeah, we're taking...
All right, there's a woman in the front walking her little black poodle, and there seems to be a guy watching her off to one side, and there seems to be an interaction between people going on there. That's just a literal description.
Simon,
I can't say anything more than that.
We give the note of truly feelers.
Yeah.
In an exaggerated sense. They really sort of feel their way completely around. They paint the background rather than the subject themselves. They manage to get sort of an atmosphere of what's truly happening on the street rather than any kind of rendition of what is perhaps reality. It's more
some interior response.
Well, Ronnie,
to it.
I tell you, Ronnie paints the streets. He finds a cathedral and everything, and every single scene has got some kind of a religious spectacle, and I think that's totally unique. Everything, you know, he painted a car wash. You look at it and you think, my God, you know, this is the Church of Santa Vittoria or something like that. he really did capture.
Ennobles it. He has his own private vision.
essence.
There's no question about it. Okay, Ken, we have one of your landscapes here, and we might say that Ken McIndoe has an amazing winter scene, about 3 by 6 or 7 feet. Hey, maybe is it what, 6 or 7 feet, 8 feet?
It's 80 inches, which is
80 inches?
nearly
A little over 6 feet.
6.5 feet. Yeah, right.
Really, it's a beautiful visual experience. I think you'll enjoy it. So, okay, Ken, what would you like to say about your piece here?
Well, here we are back out in the country from the city. I do paint things in the city too. This was just the experience again of the open, and also the fact of my experiencing things going on. Not only, you know, the experience of myself painting this, as well as other people experiencing. That seems to be important in the painting. In fact, well, this is a little bit ridiculous, I know, but Phil and I were out painting this, and we sighted a UFO. Now, I'm not... well, this is a matter of observation.
This is new information, folks.
It was looking out across that field there. Actually, it was the field behind, but it might have been this one, too. I saw something flying through the sky. Phil saw it first rise up out of the field, and he said, "Mac, look at that." And I identified it as a small object the size of a bumblebee, about 6 feet away, whereas he identified it as something 1,000 feet high, flying at incredible speed, looping up into the sky. So there were two people who are obviously used to observing things.
Two Earthmen.
Two Earthmen. Thank you. Two Earthmen trying to experience something, or experiencing something totally different at the same moment. And we never did reconcile our visions.
Are you trying to say something behind my back that I don't know about?
No.
No, you actually think it might have been a UFO film?
No.
We saw two different from two different persons. There were two different visions or visual observations. And I thought mine was fact and he thought his was fact.
Yeah,
and it was completely unexplainable to people of whom use their eyes daily. You know, that's our game.
I think that's exactly what people will see at the show, the Street Painters exhibition,
Might
is
be.
that there are 11 different people reacting extremely differently to reality. Some are very realistic, some are much looser, some are nearly abstract, although there are no abstractions. Jessie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you didn't have any photograph here. Would you like to briefly describe what some of your pictures are about? Maybe some cloud paintings or Phil Street or something like that?
Well, mainly just I'm fascinated by clouds. I'm going through a cloud fetish. And even when I did New York City, I chose one scene where I got just the very tips of several buildings and went into the sky. But the more I see of the city, the more fascinated I am to do it. And the paintings I have in the show are both clouds and the city.
Rooftops and city
Rooftops
streets and so forth.
I want to go up now. It's very hard for a woman alone to go out and paint in New York City. I have never tried it. I've always had the protection of either you, Don, my husband, or fellow artists. Now that I've got so many, I hope to go up to Times Square and just let loose. That's about all I have to say.
Okay.
Except that the show is so full of color, and the paintings are floor to ceiling. There are 3 tiers of paintings, and it's just exploding with life, vitality, originality. There's really no other show like it in New York, and I think anyone who sees it you may like it or hate it, but you'll have to be affected by it because everything's there.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, it is very different, and I can't help but place us in the broader art world, and I see us as doing things that can help art come back to life again. It's been so stifled and so dead and so killed. And what is it about street painting? Does anybody have any comment about being a street painter? Phil, I mean, you've been out painting on the streets for so many years. Do you have any? What is it?
Well, no matter who it is, and of course I'm not going to speak for anyone else here, but for me, and I have to think from watching others as they relate out in the street versus the studio or let's say a higher form of more classical stylized form, you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know what you're going to end up with, but the stimulus of being outdoors, which is something even as a child I always neglected, the white-collar type of worker. And I always wanted to get out and live in some environment which I felt was more harmonious with myself. And I think that painting out in the street really allows one to be oneself. I think that you can identify with not only the people. You've got the world as your little bowl, or
your oyster.
Yeah, or puddle of water, like McGivney would put it. But
are you really that comfortable out there? Do you feel in total harmony?
I feel more in harmony when I'm out there than I feel any other place. Now that might sound.
Well, did you have to build up your strength somehow? I mean, what I'm wondering is if the feeling is one of just total being in your own what do I want to say? Yeah, well, in just the absolute perfect environment, or did you have to struggle to get into it? Was it sort of an attitude? What I'm trying to get at, was it an attitude that said, The world says certain behavior is appropriate and you don't paint out there, and here's what I care. I don't give a damn about what the world considers appropriate behavior. I'm going to set up my easel out there, and to hell with the rest of the world, defying convention, that kind of thing. Was that part of it? Is that
Well,
part
I
of it?
think when I started, which was 19 years ago, McIndoe 17, he and I were two of the first, in a sense that out there at that time, truly it was a hostile environment. But I think that it was my need over, as an individual, over the need of the world to be suppressed by you don't do that, or it's crazy, or you're not supposed to, or the world is now painting abstract, going into pop, so forth. My needs, I think, as an individual might be greater than, I won't say my respect for other human beings, but around me, but I will say my need is my need and I don't confuse it. And I went out there out of just a desire to go. I mean, that's it, I went, that's all.
Mac, how about you? Would you like to comment on your experiences out there?
Of course, we had each other. We had each other at one time, yeah.
That was the reason why I went out, just for the joy of it. I needed to go out.
The visual beauty of it?
Yes, definitely. And I started off out more in the country, and I guess I've ended up there. But though I still paint in the small towns too around where I live. But definitely it was that need to go out, and it was nothing to do with what convention was going on. Though you're right, I didn't really care what was going on as far as the convention of
in terms of art convention,
of what was going on there. I had no part of it. No, hell with that. You know, I wanted to go out and do this because that's where I found the feeling and my own inner hopes.
Okay. Ari, did you have a comment?
I'd like to say one thing here. I address the public, and I tell you one thing. I was hanging the show today. We were putting it up, and it was not very easy. After the whole thing was done, I was sitting down on the floor looking at the whole thing. I looked at that exhibit, and I said to myself, my God, you know, it's unbelievable. I never saw a contemporary show with such great, powerful, true human crispness and feeling. And I say, on this you must see it, and I tell you, I could not believe it. And the exhibit is so sparkling and so alive in the state of the contemporary that it transcends beyond any kind of, levels of, how do you say in English, levels of cataloging. So you've got to see it because it is the true fearless exhibition of our times.
Should anyone just mention fealism and what the term, we're tossing it around, what the term represents?
Sure. No, Simon, what is fealism as far as you're concerned?
I think you're probably better suited to explain it than I am, but it's merely that our major concern is feeling opposed to anything else. We push our feelings as far as possible, as intense as we can. And when we're out there in the street, we're competing against life itself, against noise, against the vitality of the streets, and it forces you. It's like an extra force behind you, reminding you that you have to, give to your work, because life itself is vital and intense.
I think it breaks down preconceptions, and I think it frees you up, and you're forced to respond, and you're forced to be spontaneous and react to things rather than thinking in a formula way, the way so much of modern painting has that we've discussed on this program. It is just a totally abandoned life, and I think we're trying to deal with some of the spontaneity of life, some of the experiences, the feelings, and so forth, the visual pleasure just in looking at the world. So many people have just forgotten the world exists, and we're trying to rediscover it and express it in our paintings, and hope that you find some pleasure in our visual discoveries as well as the feelings that we've had when we're painting our pictures. Myron, do you have a comment?
I just want to say something about the event of the street painters going out to paint together, which I find very exciting. I mean, like, I've gone out with as many as 5, 6, 7 painters. We usually set up within a half block of each other. And like in the Times Square area, that's partly protection. I mean, like, if anybody has a problem, they can contact the other one. We've never had any real problem, or I never had any when I was with the painters. But the event and the people that make the comments, the street people, and also the after our painting session is over, the way we line up our paintings and have a little show for ourselves, for a critique for the other passers-by, I think is very exciting.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. Anybody with a burning idea they want to express that will get across what they are like, or their work, or the...
Come see the show.
And listen to us. And listen to us on WBAI, July 12th at 8 p.m. We will be discussing in more detail some of the ideas we stand for, some of the artists that we believe in besides ourselves, some of the artists that we feel are detrimental to the cause of art. It's amazing when you consider it that there are artists practicing today who are standing in the way of the development of art. They are killing it, they're stifling it, because their work has settled into a narrow, rigid, well, often profitable routine that brings in money but has nothing to do with art, does not express what it is like to be alive and to suffer and to have joy and to see life and to feel it. And if you go to the street painters, you'll see that kind of a show. Take care now. We'll see you next time.